Hello, Recruiting Blogs. I'm Daniel Fogel, VP of Content and Community at RecruitingDaily. So I went to my first True event this week at TruSF, and it was at the Twilio headquarters in downtown San Francisco. Note that this is TruSF, not True San Fran, not True San Francisco. I definitely learned to avoid that pitfall shortly after moving here. The fact that natives only refer to San Francisco as either SF or the city, and that's not to mention the standing arguments over how the different neighborhoods should be pronounced all over the city. So for those of you who may have never been to a True conference before, they're a little bit different. True is actually an acronym that stands for the Recruiting Unconference. Now, True events are full of fascinating, unfiltered, and stimulating conversation about recruiting and its many facets. Each conversation is called a track and will be led by one or more track leaders who are experts in their field. I like to think of them as similar to informal TED Talks where you participate in the conversation with your presenter. This is not a conference where one presenter speaks for an hour with a PowerPoint that they prepared. It's actual real conversations, no BS, organically flowing during the course of the conversation, and anyone who wants to can lead a track if you're there. Now, TruSF explored several different tracks. We had Brian Cheney of Twilio leading employer branding when you have a startup and you have no history of a brand. Stacy Zapper of Tenfold leading a session on employee engagement and company culture. Data privacy with Bob Lato of DataSift, and a rundown of some free technology available to improve your productivity from Mark Tortorici, founder of Transform Talent Acquisition. Now, I heard some great tactics to engage your employees and identify your employer brand, like one shared by Brian Cheney. He asked all of the Twilio workers which song best represents their brand. They collected all of those songs and created a playlist on Spotify that they can play in the office, or anybody who's either a worker or a fan of the brand can listen to anytime that they want. I think it's a really cool concept. Essentially, with employer branding, I think at the heart you want to find and celebrate what's unique about your company, and that was a really interesting way to do that. Now, I also enjoyed a discussion about who owns culture, who should own culture, and what to do when your stated culture isn't matching up with the reality. We talked about how culture begins organically at companies as they start and develop based around the personalities of the leadership. Now, you could be a Star Wars company or a Star Trek company. Is your company risk averse? Are your discussions and debate encouraged, or does one leader's opinion just decide the path sitting around the conference table? Now, as companies grow, working out of coffee shops and work shares into smaller offices and then on into larger and larger venues, there's more employees, there's more bureaucracy, there's more middle management, and there becomes some literal and figurative space that's growing between the leaders and the workers. And the culture that you started with, a lot of times, is no longer the culture that you have on the ground. Now, for anyone who's looking to make the business case for why your company culture matters and how important the employee experience is to the bottom line, you should probably check out the work of Ben Waber, W-A-B-E-R, formerly of MIT's Media Lab and now of Sociometric Solutions. He's been published lately in Fast Company and Business Week and NPR about using wearables and using hard science to show how the size of your lunch tables and how your break schedule, amongst other things, directly affect your P&L. Now, Bob's session on data privacy I found topical as I've been following along, like most of you, with the Google versus the EU case and the right to be forgotten, which will eventually have implications for many of us stateside on how long we can hold on to candidate info, and for those of us with multinational firms, which country's laws you will have to follow in order to keep compliant. I've also been hearing more and more from recruiters about how project management software is becoming one of the most effective tools in a recruiter's arsenal, and that message continued in TruSF. I also learned to host some great Chrome add-ons and some software that will help streamline a recruiter's day and your workflow from software like Connect 6, which provides real-time content information as you browse the web and social networks, or Million Short, which eliminates the top 1 million or 100,000 or 1,000 websites from your search, letting you quickly go much deeper in your search than that basic page 1 Google search on your candidates. Also, OneTab, which lets you, if you frequently multitask like I do and you have 20 different open tabs on your computer, this will convert all of your open tabs into a list, which will close it off, let you finish another task, and when you're ready to reopen it, you have all of those pages ready to go, and you can go back and pick up your work exactly where you left off. It also saves quite a bit of memory on your system so that you're going to be able to run a little bit faster. All in all, it was a great event, not your typical recruiters conference, but a chance to connect unfiltered with your peers and talk about things that are important to you and not just a thinly veiled sales pitch like some conferences can be. I plan on attending again, and maybe one of you will want to join me for the next round. Until then, thanks for coming to Recruiting Blogs, and I hope I'll see you next time. Cheers.